All right, hello everybody.
Hello, my name is Ruby. I'm the manager of Historia.
I don't know how she just stretched like that. Cats are very impressive. She's trying to talk to you guys. She's saying, hi, welcome.
I love her noises. Welcome to Historia, though.
She tripped over my Gatorade bottle.
Good Lord. I am Jamie.
I'm Kylie.
And this is our third one?
This is our third episode of the day that we've been recording. So
We like to plan ahead.
we do.
Because we are busy bees.
We are, so we only record every couple weeks.
But we like to be there for you guys.
Mm-hmm. So you guys are like in like mid-April. That's crazy.
Holy shit. Oh, I have jury duty.
Oh.
I have to call in on the 4th. I need to look. I don't know.
Bro, I've never been invited to jury duty.
Dude, I fucking hate it.
How many times have you been invited?
Once.
I say invited. That's not fair. I want to go.
What? Yeah, because the thing that sucks is that because for jury duty, you normally are going to do something like somewhat interesting.
Yeah.
But like, I want. This is really bad. I don't want to be on a jury if it's not going to be like a freaking hardcore series.
Yeah, that's how I feel too.
Anything other than that, I'm like, I have shit to do. I don't care about your robbery. Like, that sucks. Like, freaking fine his ass. Put him in a jail for a couple weeks. But, like, I don't want to be here. But my dad was in a murder trial.
Bro, see, that's what I'm hoping to get invited to, but...
Yeah, his was, I think it was, the guy killed his girlfriend.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and so my dad was like, yeah, that was pretty rough. And honestly, I don't even want to be like on an extreme murder case because that's going to take weeks.
Yeah, that's true.
That you're going to be in there and it can get pretty brutal. Like, I can't imagine being part of the trial for like the Toy Box Killer.
Yeah.
Or even for John Wayne Gacy. Like,
right.
All of those like heavy hitters. But
that would be kind of fun. Like, not fun, but like...
It just takes out of my day, and then I have to, like, take time off, even though they're supposed to pay you, but I don't think you get paid as much as you would, like, at... Mm-hmm. So I have to talk to my boss, but she's pretty chill. And I'm like, I'm trying to save time. I'm not trying to waste. So I hope when I call in, they're just going to be like, nah, don't come in.
Yeah.
Because I literally waited around the first time that I was called for jury duty, like, fucking sucked because they don't have parking. And because it's downtown, so they don't have, like, any parking because it's already taken by the time you get there by all the workers. Mm. So you have to park in the parking garage. Then you have to make sure you get a ticket at the end of the day so you don't have to pay. Oh my God. You can only pay in cash, which is fucking stupid because I don't carry cash on me.
That's stupid.
Yeah, and then I just waited around for, like, 3.5 hours just to be called for my number. We go into a room. I'm like... Man, I put some bullshit stuff that you do not want me on a jury because I just wanted to leave. Because I was working a part-time job, so they don't give a fuck if you're on jury duty. Like, I had to take a day off, so I'm not getting paid for that. And then they're like, oh, they're not going to have it today. Like, you guys can leave. And I'm
what?
Like, ugh. So, because I was just prepping that I was going to be used. So I took pretty much as much time as I could.
Oh my God.
Just like, hey guys, I don't know if I'm going to be able to work. And of course, my boss was just making me feel guilty about it. I'm like, I don't have a choice. So some people love jury duty. I would rather go on with my day because I don't really care.
Yeah, that's kind of dumb. I can see how that'd be frustrating.
Yeah, so, but...
They should have it more organized than that. Like, if you don't have to come call you or something.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much why you call in the night before.
Yeah,
before you're supposed to go in, so, but...
Just to know.
Fucking jury duty. Let us know if you've ever been into a really cool
trial. We want to hear your stories.
Yeah.
If you have, let's hear all about it. As much as you can give us. We won't share it with the public.
I can't believe you haven't been chosen.
I know, I haven't been invited. It's like, I'm like...
Invited?
It's like FOMO. Like, I know it's lame. I know it's stupid. I know it takes time out of your day. But, like, I feel like, why have I not been, like, chosen? Like, why am I just, like, waiting around for this invitation?
Yeah, there's so many more people that could be chosen, and of course they fucking choose me a second time.
How do they choose people?
A random.
Bro, what if I never get chosen?
You might not.
I might get lucky.
My mom hasn't. My dad has been put on jury duty like 3 times.
I think my dad has too.
He's just like, this sucks. He's like, I don't want to do this. I'm like, I would be a terrible candidate because I will pass out if I see a lot of blood.
Oh, I just remembered. I think Basil, my fiance, got jury duty, but he was about to move here. Mm-hmm. So he had to, like, tell him he couldn't come. So he's been chosen. I haven't even been chosen. Maybe this will be my year.
I hope it is. So you can know what it's like.
Watch me get, like, the lamest case ever.
Yeah, they're always... Because they're not just, like, regular, I don't think, divorce. They don't have, like... I think it's a little bit more, like, robbery or stuff like that, but... I still don't want to be a part of that.
Maybe it will be about someone from our high school.
Honestly, I would not be surprised.
Exactly. All right. Well, anyway, we're talking about Sparta today.
I am so sorry about that long introduction.
It's important business to keep track of. April, the month of April.
Fantastic.
All right. Anyway.
Sparta Part 2!
Yeah, we're going to jump back into Sparta. So, if you remember, last time we just talked about the introduction to Sparta and some of the things that have to go with training and fighting. So if you haven't listened to that yet, go back and listen to that. And then come back. Yeah.
Persian War.
We talked about that. Yes, of course. I just caught my microphone. It started to fall. All right. Today, I'm going to be touching more on the culture and the daily life of a Spartan.
Heck yeah.
So this is going to be pretty fascinating. I'm also going to be talking about Athens a lot because you're going to see them coincide pretty soon. All right. So here we go. We left off to Athens and Sparta as allies. But again, they are very scared of each other. So at this point in Sparta, nobody has touched their homeland. So nobody's made it that far to actually get in their area.
Okay, so the Persians just got into Greece.
Right. But Athens have been invaded. Spartans are back to their usual routines. They're just kind of like, all right, I guess we'll see what happens. If anyone tries to come for us, we're ready. So they're preparing to die for their cause. Like I mentioned in the last episode, they believe that death was beautiful and that they, if they die, they just did it to protect their country. So they want to protect their utopia, and they need to produce more warriors in order to do that. So that's what they're focused on right now, training, fighting, trying to find different tactics for the next time that they need to use them. In Athens, the usual government was men with money had the say. It's usually how it is.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. The oarsmen were the poor people who actually were the ones who helped win a lot of different victories. So if you guys remember last time, we were talking about the Persian War. The people who were in the boat that helped defeat Persia were the ones who did the most. And so those were a lot of, like, slaves and, like, people who were very, like, low, known to be low. They weren't even, like, very well-trained fighters. They were the ones who actually won. And so that happened in Athens too. And so Athens, they believe that those people who were the oarsmen, they just wanted a say in what's going on. So there was the head oarsman. His name was Pericles. I believe that's how it would be pronounced. Yeah. And he's a wealthy aristocrat. He ran the democracy for generations. In order to change the democracy, he had to become one with the citizens. And so he won everyone over because of how he talked very, like, delicately. Like, people just loved him and who he was. But also because he had a mass civic building program, which is basically like giving people different jobs. In Athens that they could have. So this was a scheme for poor people in the city. You want a job? Come on in. And basically this transformed all people into wage owners. So he's trying to find jobs for people, but also kind of using them at the same time. He introduced state salaries for juries and war services. The government was finally becoming a government by the people, is what Athens was focused on right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So There is an Athenian agora, which is the beating heart of Athens. This is where daily life took place. They were expected to pull their weight and participate consistently. And Athens forced democracy. And we talked about Sparta. Sparta forced military discipline. So they have very different morals. Very different.
Well, yeah, because they're trying to, for Sparta, they're trying to use violence.
Right.
And then Athens is trying to use their words.
Yeah, and kind of like be united as one. And like, yeah. So Persia is just chilling. But they're remaining a constant threat to both of these areas.
Well, yeah, Persia wanted them.
Oh, yeah. Athens decided to lead the way of protecting Greece because they knew somebody had to do it.
Yeah.
And Sparta's like, well, we're too busy training. Like, we can't just waste our time and, like, stand around, wait for Persia to come. And so Athens is like, we'll do it!
Oh, no.
It's like the, like, really, like, extroverted person, I feel like. And they're like, yeah, we'll go, no problem! And Sparta's just like, yeah, Sparta's like, we ain't got time for this shit. Can we go back to training? And so, yeah, Athens decided to kind of lead the way. Athens was a sea power now at this time.
Okay.
And they were explained to be, like, the policemen of the Eastern Mediterranean.
Ugh.
Yeah, they kind of are the teacher's pet. I like that description because they're like, guys, I don't think that's how we should be doing it. Like, we should be nice to each other.
Sparta's like the bad boy.
Yeah, the bad boy in the back is just like, shut the fuck up. He's like, and he goes to the smoker's corner.
Smoker's corner, yeah.
Sparta did not trust democracy. They had no walls, they had no borders to protect them from different things. But like I mentioned last time, they used each other as a wall. So they believe that like if you're really going to work together, you are the wall. You don't need to build anything that's going to come in between. They considered the men to be the walls and the spheres to be their borders. That's what they went by. Yeah. But I'm like, okay, but also you could just build a wall because then, you know, we have like that. But okay, that's fine. The city was
crafty enough.
I know. It's true. They were too busy focusing on other stuff. They were dancing. The city was made up of ideals. And Athens' democracy excluded women, foreigners, and slaves. Bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you.
So anyone who was a citizen and a male was the democracy.
Go figure.
Not a very large. I mean, it is a large population, but like...
No.
It's just a myth.
That's not how democracy works.
Right. You got it wrong, bud. So, good order in Sparta was compromised by sexual politics, which I'm also going to be talking about in this. But women were known to be very isolated in Athens, whereas the kind of conservative Sparta was radical. So we're going to be talking about life as a woman.
I think, are you talking just about Athenian women or in Sparta women or just Spartan women?
I'm not talking a lot about Athenian women, but I'll talk a little bit about them.
Because I know, I remember in my studies, because I think that Women's Life of Greece and Rome book that I gave you.
Yeah.
Really good book. Who's the author of it?
Oh, this one is, by Mary R. Lefkowitz and Maureen B. Faint.
It's really good, but because I had to use that for my Women's of Antiquity class.
Yeah.
And pretty much like Athenian women, they would just stay up in the room. Mm-hmm. Like they had no role outside. Right. Which is really unfortunate because except for festivals. Yeah. Festivals were an exception. That's where the women got to be free, but...
And some religious ceremonies.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But it's just like... They were so confided. I bet they got sunburned terribly if they even stepped outside.
Yeah, because they'll probably go out and be like, what is that? The sun!
Much, ah! Yeah, it's so sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is really sad.
And then you have Spartan women.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say about that.
I'm going to actually start by talking about the Athenian women.
Nice.
Which, I mean, we kind of just touched on it, but life really wasn't fun for them. Mm-mm. Anything that the women ended up creating, like if it was like a painting, or like they're basically like creating their own like sculptures, that kind of thing. It was for the men. So anything that they created was so that the men could sell it or that the men could use it for their own good.
They weren't even traitors. They couldn't be traitors.
I know. Like, bruh. So they just wanted the credit for everything that the women did, basically. Yeah. The women were expected to never be seen and never be heard. So like we mentioned, they're in their own 4 little walls, stuck in there. It just sounds like terrible. Like, why would you even want to live, you know?
Honestly.
They were to stay indoors and never be mentioned in public.
Mm-hmm.
So you never mentioned if you had, like, a daughter, that kind of thing. They just didn't talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
We don't talk about women.
Pretty much.
They were given little education, and they believed that if they gave them the power to education, that it would be very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if they had education, it'd be very pointless to have one if they're just staying in a room all the time.
Exactly.
So, but they also just kind of believe that, like, if we gave the woman the power, I don't know what they'd do. So they were kind of scared to see what would happen.
Everybody's always terrified of women.
Yeah. Hell yeah. All right. So they believe that teaching women things is like giving extra venom to a huge snake. That is how, like, one poet from this time put it.
It blows my mind because you have such powerful goddesses that have just shaped their world, yet their own women they just see as irrelevant.
Right.
It's amazing how close-minded everybody was.
It is. It's very, very interesting. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Yeah. But, and so in Athens, they could be married off as young as 12 years old.
So young.
I know, to a chosen man. So they were taken away from their family and then forced to stay in this man's house forever. It's like, they had to manage the family, cook, and do chores. And that was their roles.
Awful.
There were some rich women. And the rich women who had slaves could let the slave cook, and then they would have to sew. So I'm like, they're still working. Yeah. But they just had, like, different jobs.
You can probably just chill all day.
And I'd be like, boring. Slave, can you sew as well?
Honestly.
So I don't have to do shit. But yeah, I would be bored. I'd probably want to cook. I probably wouldn't even want a slave. Like, yeah, like we mentioned, sometimes they would go to festivals or religious ceremonies, but mostly they would stay inside. But now let's talk about the Sparta women. They were everywhere. Everywhere you turned, women. There were more women than men.
Well, yeah, that's how it is on the planet.
Right. So women dominated the city while the men fought. And if the men were not fighting, they were hanging out with the other men in the dining areas, like I mentioned earlier. Women were objects of fear and fascination for non-Spartan men. So a lot of non-Spartan men were like, oh my God, they're strong women. I'm scared. I'm like, hell yeah. Let's go. So Sparta was also known as Caliganica, which means home of beautiful women. So that was like their other nickname. This all goes back to Jamie's favorite, Helen.
Fuck Helen.
Fuck Helen. She just eye rolled. Because Helen's beauty was legendary.
Sure it was.
Oh my God. We gotta hear the story on Helen soon, Jimmy.
I'd rather not. I'd rather cover Cassandra.
Okay, we'll do
prophesized all of this.
We'll do Cassandra and then Helen? She's never gonna talk about Helen. So the women were fit. They were trained just like the men were, and they were very, very muscular. They were fed the same exact rations as the boys, but they could also drink wine. The men did not get wine.
Why? That's such a weird...
I asked the same question. I'm like, why?
Did they see it as too feminine? Like,
probably. They're like, yeah, that's a girl drink.
Oh my God.
I won't drink that. But they were fed the same exact thing, so they also did the pig's blood and the vinegar.
Ew.
I know. Delicious.
How is that nutritious?
At the time, they believed that it was what they needed. So they're getting the protein, and the vinegar is good for you, I guess.
So instead of eating the pig, they just drain its blood and just throw the rest of it, like the actual nutritious parts of it. Oh my god.
They gave it to the other people. They're like, you guys can eat.
So they're
but our soldiers
a lot better. I would rather be a hella.
Right, me too. I'd rather be a freaking slave. Especially than a woman. But like, well, in Athens at least. It'd be cool to be a woman in Sparta. But anyway, okay, so they were allowed to drink wine. The state taught them how to sing, dance, wrestle, and throw discus. So,
okay.
Very well educated.
Yeah, because the Olympics.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know it. So, they were encouraged to also be very competitive, like men were. Mm-hmm. So, they were very competitive. They liked their sports. And the girls and the boys exercised naked. Nudity was the norm, mm-hmm. But it also encouraged fitness. So, it encouraged them, like, somebody's staring at your body, you're also looking at your own body. Like, mm-hmm. Is this what you want, or do you want it to be stronger? So, that's why they decided to exercise naked.
So they were nudists.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Athenian women were jealous of their bodies, of the Spartan women's bodies.
Well, yeah, no shit.
Right, because they're like, crammed in this little house.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they obviously aren't working out. Nobody cares about their health.
They're not doing Pilates.
You're right.
They didn't know what Pilates were.
Exactly. And Spartan women were all the talk around Greece. Like, they were like, oh my god, look at them. Because of, like, how in shape they were. And then, like, how much power that they had. It was just, mm-hmm. like, very inspirational to all the other women, but also they were, like, jealous.
Well, it sucks for Athenian women who want to get out of that society and wanting to go to Sparta, but knowing that they can't because then they're going to be as outsiders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, they can only really live in desire.
Mm-hmm. So the women did a lot of Spartan dances. One big thing that they had to do was the women had to jump up and hit their butt with their heels over and over and over again. Like, they had to basically practice jumping high, mm-hmm. and being able to, like, bend their knees so that they would kick themselves. They had to do this as many times as they could, while a lot of the men watched, or even other women would watch each other. Mm-hmm. This gave them very strong thighs.
Ooh, I bet they had some thick thighs.
I know, right?
And some strong
They were known to have really good thighs.
Yeah.
So they would have ritual dances, all hanging out, all the women together dancing, and then they would also have, like, choral contests. So they'd be like, all right, can you sing better than me? Let's find out. Women would also sing together. So this was one of the first areas to encourage homosexuality, mm-hmm. and a lot of the women stayed with the women. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to see the men as well, growing up with other men. So the men and the women were used to different lives. Like, they weren't really, like, coexisting as much, because they had their own things to focus on. Mm-hmm. The men, when they were sent to the Agagi, they were basically paired with an older man.
Yeah.
This man was responsible for the needs of the boy. So he's basically like their mom. Once they move up, mm-hmm. They have to go to training. Mm-hmm. They need someone to take care of them. So this is like their mom and their dad kind of as one person.
Yeah.
But also it's their lover.
Yeah.
So as they're growing up, they need other needs met. And this older gentleman is going to do it for them. So.
I'm very curious to know when, like, because eventually that older guy is going to have to move on. Mm-hmm. So when does that shift occur? Like, when he's done?
Probably when the young one's done.
Yeah.
And then if, like, he ends up dying or whatever,
he
would just have to kind of move on without him. It depends probably on their age. Like, if he died or something when he was, like, 10, he'd mm-hmm. probably just get another one. But, I don't know. It's very interesting to think about.
Mm-hmm.
But, so, basically the men were growing up. And the only, like, sexual activity that they had was from other men. Mm-hmm. And so that's what they were used to. So I'm going to talk a little bit about marriage. There was something called marriage by capture. So on the wedding night, the bride would have shaved her head like a small boy.
Oh.
She would then dress in a man's cloak and sandals. And she would be left alone in a dark room. She would wait for her husband to come. So then her husband would come to her, lay her down on a straw pallet, have sex with her, and then go back to hang out with his male comrades. That's
How would they even...
That was their interactions.
He probably just looks at her being like, I don't know what to do. Like, what is that?
I know, right? Like, they probably took a second for him to, like, figure out what to do. So a lot of them were still with men, but they, like, needed to reproduce children. So they had to have sex with their wives every night. So obviously some of them might actually enjoy it, but a lot of them were just, like, so used to men that they were kind of like, oh, this is weird.
Yeah.
It's just very interesting to think about. It's like the complete opposite of, like, you know, modern society, like the ideals that people have.
Oh, yeah.
It's very interesting. So this would carry on for each night for months, sometimes even years. So if they know they need more men, they need more warriors. So they want to have kids as quick as possible. So they would do this every single night. And so the women had to stay clean shaven and basically just be ready for him every night in a dark room.
Good Lord.
Very fun. Exciting stuff. So like we mentioned, this is the first experience that they ever had with a woman. So like, they could be attracted to women as they're like growing up, but they don't have any time to go date someone, you know, or to go like be with someone in that way. So this was their first experience.
Love didn't work that way.
Yeah, no. Some women wanted a husband so bad that they would beat the men on the head, drag them around an altar, and try to force them to commit to them.
Oh my God.
And the man was like, okay. I love it. Like, the woman, like, went as far sometimes to beat the man.
I wonder how it worked, though, if you were an indentured servant or a slave. Like, how did their marriage work? Because we focused so primarily on, like, how the Spartan marriage worked. But, like, for everybody else, was it just, like, a normal courtship?
I'm gonna look into that for part 3.
Because I'm very curious about that.
That'd be very interesting to
look into. Or if they even know.
Right. Yeah, I definitely want to touch more on their lives. So we'll definitely get there. But yeah, so sometimes they had to, like, force them to commit. And unmarried men were, like, the joke of the world. Like, if you were a bachelor, you're a joke. And so if you got to a point where, like, a woman rejected you, or you just didn't want to marry someone, you were stripped naked and forced to march around the marketplace in the middle of winter, and you had to sing an embarrassing song. And so people knew, like, oh, he's single, loser. And they were like, throw things at him and stuff.
Shame.
So yeah, being a single man was incredibly embarrassing. Women could choose to be single if they wanted to, but men, it was like, they got to decide if they wanted to get married. But the men, it was like, while you're fighting, you have to create other warriors. So they had to marry a woman in order to do that.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, because they couldn't just go hook up with someone.
No.
Yeah. Huh. So, yeah, they needed to produce more warriors. So if, like, you're not going to step up and marry someone, we're going to throw this at you.
Interesting.
We're going to throw little pebbles at you. Loser! Women were pretty well fed, and they were treated well to produce healthy babies. So they knew, like, if we take care of the women, they're going to have strong babies, so we don't have to throw them off the cliff.
Well, yeah, because you're carrying them around for 9 months.
Exactly. So that's another reason why they had the women work out as well, is because they know that they needed the woman to be strong so that the babies would indeed be strong.
See, that is smart. You have all these Athenian women staying in their house doing nothing. Like, yeah, they're probably going to die in childbirth.
Or they're going to have really, like, unhealthy babies because they couldn't give them the nutrition. It's crazy.
Some vitamin C.
Yeah. But all around Sparta, there's just so much pressure to keep producing male children. Gotta have the warriors, gotta keep going. And so the Spartan women were like, oh my God, fine, okay, whatever. But that's basically what they were told their whole lives.
Yeah.
They had power, and they were very, very responsible, the women were. They took on men in things like politics. I'm like, hell yeah. Street and sporting arenas. So they would even take on men in the sporting arenas. I'm like, yeah. While the other Greek women in different places stayed invisible. Just kind of hid themselves and didn't have really a life, honestly. Staying in a room is not a life.
That's just wild.
So, Sparta is a city-state basically ran by women, honestly, if we think about it that way, because the men, yes, they're like the warriors, they're the fighters, but they don't do shit when they're not fighting.
No.
They sit and talk to each other. The women are running, like, the different marketplaces and all of that. Like, so it's a city-state ran by women. And this pissed some of the men off.
Well, yeah.
They're like, we're still better. So, and I just think of it like a whole like area just full of uneducated people because they really don't know that much. Mm-mm. They know how to dance, how to fight. Like, how do they talk to each other if they're not like educated? You know what I mean?
I mean, you still learn the language verbally. They just probably didn't have it written down.
Yeah. It's just very interesting. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't be able to read something, but they could wrestle you.
Yeah, I wonder how they had signs.
Yeah. Just like even if they pictures.
Had signs. Honestly, pictures are probably the way that they did it.
Yeah. So, Athens and other Greek cities, the women were not allowed to own land or be wealthy at all. So they had to marry their cousins or their uncles mostly to keep the wealth in the family. This way it wouldn't change. So if they married like a richer guy, mm-hmm. then they wouldn't be more wealthy. So however wealthy they were born into, that's how wealthy they stay. Oh. Basically. They couldn't even like basically hide. Or sorry, they couldn't ride. That's what it says. They couldn't ride around, so they couldn't just go ride a horse. Like they had to stay in their little houses, unless they were going to a funeral. That's when they can ride around. What? Oh, so stupid. In Sparta, they could be landowners and they could own different properties in their own right. So it would be known to be theirs until they died. Basically, they could inherit estates, while Athens could not. They had the right to choose if they wanted to marry and who they would marry. While again, Athens was pushed to marry certain gentlemen.
Holy moly. I know. That's probably why they hated each other.
Right.
Because, yeah, their ideologies were so different.
Right. There's very much an imbalance here.
Yeah.
So besides the Amazons, the big myth of the Amazons, the power of females was unlike anything else that they've ever seen. Mm-hmm. So this was the first area to really give women that power. And so some Spartan women even became celebrities. So we have a Spartan princess. Her name is Kyniska. And she was a sporting legend. Oh. She was what we know today as a tomboy, mm-hmm. From a sporting family. And she was an owner of a champion chariot team. And so she was very wealthy and worked well with horses. So she was training those horses in order to help with like fighting and different things like that. So she never raced because she also would have them, train them on how to race each other. Yeah. But she never did the racing, but she employed men to drive the horses, basically. She was like kind of like their coach, mm-hmm. I guess I could think of it that way. And so she decided to enter her team at the Olympic Games, and they ended up winning.
Heck yeah.
So the men were shocked. They're like, how did a woman do this? Gross. 4 years later, she won again. And so she ended up actually dedicating a monument to herself for being victorious. Yeah. And she wrote something on it that was like, no other woman has done this before. Like, she was very proud. Even though she didn't really receive the credit because the men were the ones racing. Mm-hmm. But she's the one that led them to victory. So
she still put herself on a monument. She's like, bitch, I'm still here.
Oh, yeah. And everyone in Greece was like, oh my God, I love her. Kyniska. In politics, the women were trained to speak in public, but they could not make decisions. So they were able to kind of explain like how they felt about different things, mm-hmm. but they weren't able to help in any of the decision making. But they made sure that they were heard consistently. Women were very much for the like men having to fight and be warriors. So they always praised the brave men. They were like, yeah, they're kind of like cheerleaders. Mm-hmm. And then the cowards, they were like, ew, you're a coward. So they like made fun of them. Like they were very, very sassy in the way that they talked to them. If you were not a man, like living up to the men's standards, then the women were going to let you know.
They don't care.
No, they do not. So women really enjoyed their freedom of speech. But it's not like what we know of as like a feminist land. Yeah. Because that's definitely not what it was. They believed that women were there for one sole purpose, to create more warriors, and that was it. Mm-hmm. So even though they had these different freedoms, they still were not known to be treated the same as the men. They were just there so that they could create more men.
Well, yeah, because for the warriors, they're like, we're going to do this, we're going to give you all this attention, and then everything else, they're like, you women can just handle it.
Yeah, exactly. So the last thing I'm going to be talking about in this episode, because I wanted to keep this one kind of just focused on like the women and different things going on with that, is the mothers of these kids. So the mother could not be sentimental with her son. Like, you really could not get attached to your son because you know that they're leaving you when they're 7.
Yeah.
So they had to make sure that their sons did their duty of training from the moment they're born. They have to learn how to walk quickly. They have to learn how to exercise, how to run.
Yeah.
Because if not, they're not going to make it far at all. So they were not nurturing. They couldn't be nurturing. If their kid got hurt, they had to let their kid cry. They had to let their kid figure it out by themselves. So that's just like, it's crazy to think about, like, you know, how much pressure it would be to, like, give birth to this kid and, like, not help them when they're crying, but, like, have them just kind of get through it.
You're kind of more of just, like, a birth giver.
Yeah.
Than just...
Yeah. It's so sad. And so whenever the son turned 7 and they were sent to the Agoji, the mother would have a farewell ceremony for the child. And this was whether he would come back victorious or dead, she would never know if she would see her son again. So the mother just basically had to cut ties and be like, wherever they go, I might see them one day, I may not. But I've raised them to be 7, they're off.
Yeah.
Now I need to go focus on the next kid. So the mother did not give sympathy for when men were lawful and they might have returned home if they didn't make it through the training. So some men were sent, or even boys at the time were sent away, like sent back home if they could not make it. If that happened, the mom would just be like, screw you, I don't want you. Like, why would I care about you? And so then they were just like sent to be slaves or like, you know, so it really sucked for the ones who just like weren't built for this.
Yeah.
Because I always think of it like not every person is built athletic. Like even if they're training their whole lives, like.
Well, I wonder how many of them then ran away to a different
exactly.
country or a different city.
Right, because they just didn't have, you know, that passion like to fight.
Yeah.
And so they would even say that the man should go back to where they came from. Like if like their son came back and was like, Mom, I'm actually not a good fighter, so I actually can't continue the camp. She would like lift up her skirt and say, go back in there. We'll try again.
Oh my God.
I'm like, oh my God, that's very dramatic. So there currently has not been a lot of fighting going on to make their moms proud, but that is soon going to change. So in the next episode, I'll be starting with Sparta and Athens coming together. Dun, 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 dun.
Peloponnesian War.
So this episode is short, but the next one will probably be longer because I'm hoping that it will be the last part. But we'll see because I'm still going to finish researching. This was the basics of life as a woman, kind of growing up.
Yeah.
As a boy.
Did you, so would the girls stay with their parents then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
She got more so the girls got more nurture.
Yeah,
sure.
I think they were allowed to nurture the girls as long as they were still, like, training.
Okay, so the girls weren't as traumatized.
Yeah. They couldn't just be like, all right, you're just going to sit here and do nothing, or you're going to be, like, our chef. Like, they still had to train and be treated similar to the guys.
To go back to.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I said, like, being a girl at this time in Sparta was not horrible. It might even be better than being a male.
That's for sure. Oh, yeah. Honestly, it's like, for a male, you're screwed since the day you're born.
Yeah, there's so much pressure on you.
Yeah.
And, like, even for girls, there's pressure, because, like, if you can't give birth or, like, you can't get pregnant, what are you good for? But, like, at least they're able to kind of live their life.
Well, yeah, there's still, like, other things that they can do, because you know that if you are giving birth to, like, 3 sons, you're going to be seen as, like, the greatest woman on this planet.
Yeah.
And then you pretty much can just live out your life, just, like, stay fit, make sure your children are successful, and then do your own thing.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, women in Athens, they give birth to their child, and then they might die.
Exactly. They just kind of have to suffer there.
Yeah.
That's horrible. So.
But yeah, Spartan women are so fascinating.
I know. I'm just so intrigued by it.
Oh yeah, when we were doing research about, because it was a women's class.
Yeah.
We just did women of just before Common Era.
Yeah.
And Spartan women just blew my mind. I was like, that is so wild, because it's one of the first societies that we see that women have more of a voice.
Yeah.
Because for so long, women's voices were just
silenced.
And just having like Spartan women to come up and still like they didn't have like a lot of their freedom, but
yeah,
like to have as much as they did for that time is wild. So
it really is.
I gotta give it to them.
It's very fascinating.
I would love to cover the Olympics.
Yes.
Like the beginning of the Olympics,
right?
Like in Greece, and then the beginning of the Olympics in 1896.
Yeah, I didn't touch heavy on the Olympics because I was like, that's a whole other thing we can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is very interesting, like how it started and everything. So we should definitely cover that.
Oh, I definitely want to cover the Olympics since I worked at the committee.
Yes, do it.
So cool. This was a cool episode. I like this episode.
It's very fascinating.
Yeah.
Because you don't always think about, like, the women at this time.
No, you don't.
You're just like, oh, the men, woo!
Honestly.
And the mothers, too. Like, oh my God, imagine just, like, having a baby and being like, well, I can't love him. So, it's how it is. You can't nurture him.
So where can you find us?
So you can find us on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok at History of the Podcast. You can email us at historyofthepodcast@gmail.com if you have any, like, questions or you have topics, suggestions, or stories, etc. Feel free to email us.
Yeah.
If you know any awesome fun facts about maybe the women at this time, that would also be fun to hear from, or even the men, kind of what was going on at this time. If you really enjoy Sparta, maybe you have some fun facts you want to share.
Oh, yeah. I always love being just educated and looking further into it because
and there's so much in this topic. Like researching has been very overwhelming but like exciting at the same time. There's like so I didn't want to go to bed last night because I was like, I just want to keep researching, but like I was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna have to cut it. So I'm definitely not going to cover everything. Like I wish I could, but we say this a lot, we cannot do that unless we sat here and talked about the same thing for months.
It would have to be a whole podcast by itself.
Yeah. So there's always something new to learn. And we definitely encourage you guys going out and researching yourself.
Oh yeah. This is just a foundation for you guys to like really look deeper into these topics, to find your own books to like read and let us know. Cause I always like, I'm forever going to be researching more on Cleopatra.
Oh yeah.
Even though we like maybe in the future I'll do like a revamp and try to find like more to it, but it's just I always like knowing more.
Me too. It's always fun.
So thank you for joining us this week. We really appreciate it.
Yes, stay tuned next week for part 3 of Sparta. That should be the last one. Should be. Even if it's a longer one, it should be the last one. So we'll get that to you next week.
Nice.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening. Ruby says bye too.